filed against MU Assistant Professor Melissa Click. Interim Chancellor Hank Foley speaking on that now.
To Mr. Ty and to Mr. Shearbarker. Because of the gravity of the matter, I considered it important to speak to you and to all Missourians today. Assault requires adjudication by a court of law, and now it's in the hands of the legal system as is appropriate. We're mindful that we must allow due process to play out for Dr. Click, and we'll be watching for those outcomes. At the same time, the academic community here at MU will continue to work on a very important question about Dr. Click. Is she or is she not someone who should receive tenure at this university? We're in the process of making that very decision. I want to explain that the tenure process takes many months, beginning in September and ending in the late spring or early summer of the following year. It is a very careful and a very thoroughgoing process. For those of you who are calling for hasty action, I say this. We have good, strong processes in place, and we'll follow them to their completion and logical outcome. When we deviate from such time-honored traditions at the university, as some have called for, we tend to make mistakes, and it often leads to turmoil, more turmoil, I should say, rather than to less turmoil. We have precedent to follow in such matters as this. I've asked the provost, the dean, and her chair to determine, in fact, if Dr. Click should be removed from the classroom, and if she should be removed this week. Until these charges are sorted out, we need to look at those kinds of questions carefully. We're confident that she does not, of course, present any danger to anyone, but we will protect the learning environment for our students. With that, I'd be happy to take a few questions.
I think you've been pressured from lawmakers, one of the curators. Why not go with their suggestion?
Well, as I said, I think when we make hasty decisions, when we deviate from our processes that we've put in place carefully for really almost 200 years now, we tend to make mistakes. You know, there are very few organizations in Missouri or anywhere else that have lasted as long as academic institutions. We're nothing like a corporation. We're an academic enterprise. We have our ways of doing things. They're not hasty, but we usually come to very good decisions. So I'm going to stand by those traditions, time-honored traditions that we've had, in spite of what I know are plaintive cries for something else.
You also said that you don't feel she's dangerous. A lot of people think she is. Why don't you think she's dangerous?
Yeah, a number of our people have spoken to Melissa Click, and Dr. Click is frankly aggrieved by this whole situation. Feels very bad about it from what I understand, and I think she had a moment of heated anger that day on November 9th, and I doubt very much that she would do anything like that again. I just don't think the person is dangerous.
So you said you asked her bosses within the communications department to decide if they're going to keep her or not?
No, that's not quite right. What I asked is that the provost, the dean, and the chair make a determination as to whether or not she should remain in class until these charges are sorted out. And Provost Stokes can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that she's working from home for the duration of this week. Is that correct? Thank you.
If she loses her position, is there going to be another position created for her, which often happens with a lot of these things like this, or is she definitely leaving?
So we're in,
completely, she's out of here.
we have policies and we have procedures, and we'll follow our policies and procedures and adjudicate her case. I don't want to prejudge her tenure case by any means. That said, when someone is given tenure, they stay. When someone is not given tenure, they have about a year to leave.
So in other words, there could be a new position created?
No, it's not a new position. It's a position. It's what we always do for every case of denied tenure. Person's given about a year to find another job and to leave the university.
How much influence will the assault charge have on your decision?
Hard to say. It's something that has to be factored in as this case moves forward. One has to put in the balance, the scholarship, the teaching quality, and weigh that against the opprobrium that's been brought upon the university for this case. Those things have to be looked at carefully, and we'll be doing that. Yes, sir.
Is it fair for students? I mean, she's going to be gone all week. Is this a distraction for the students?
No, quite the opposite. We feel the other way. We feel that it would have been a distraction, probably, had we let classes go on as they were scheduled to take place this week. It's a fair question. It's a judgment call. We chose to do it this way. Yeah.
Have you taken into consideration all of the signings of students and staff wanting to keep her? Has that been part of the decision of coming to this conclusion at all?
You know, I think about 100 people signed that. We have, you know, over 1,000 people who are tenure track faculty who haven't said anything, haven't signed any petitions. So I'd say at this point, no. We're following our processes and procedures because that's what academic institutions do, and we're one of the best academic institutions in the country, and we know this is the right way to handle this. Despite the fact that, you know, a lot of folks don't understand us, don't understand how we work, and part of my job, I think, is to get out in front and to explain to people that this is being looked at. This is not being ignored. People are held accountable for their actions at the university.
And has she had any other record before this? I mean, this was a first offense, first and last offense, I guess.
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, I mean, everyone has a criminal background check when they're hired by the university. I'm sure she did. To the best of my knowledge, she is a model citizen in other ways. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Can you talk a little bit about those policies and procedures just so we understand? So is there going to be an investigation? Are you going to look at
Right.
her teacher evaluations? I mean, how is that?
So the tenure process, I'll talk about two things. The tenure process and then a task force that we put together. So the tenure process is a very old and staid and clear process. You could read our CRRs. They're not too different at any university. Basically, the candidate puts together a dossier. The dossier includes all the evidential material of their work as a scholar, their work as a teacher, their work in service both to the university, their college, their unit, and maybe to their outside professional organizations. And if there are other creative works that the faculty member chooses to put in, that can be in there as well. And then what happens is, because of the way we are organized with shared governance, which has been in place now for probably close to 100 years at MU, first the department will look at the dossier. There'll be a committee of peers. That's on the faculty side. And then it comes over to the administrative side, and it's reviewed by the chairperson. Then it goes back to the faculty side at the college level, where there's another committee, and it comes over to the dean on the administrative side. And then it bounces back to the university level, which is a committee of the whole. And then finally it goes to the provost and then to me to make a decision. That's the process for tenure. That's the process we're in right now. She's about, what, halfway, two-thirds up that ladder, if you will, going back and forth, along with many other candidates, I might add, many outstanding candidates. We have some really terrific people here. Second thing I've done is, in working with faculty council, President Ben Trachtenberg, he and I have put together a very high-level committee of people, a task force, if you will, that includes legal scholars, constitutional scholars, representatives from the police department at MU, other administrators and students and staff to look at what really happened on November 9th and to try to figure out what was going on and if any further action should be taken, and to advise us as leaders of any actions that they think should be taken, but also to sort of put us in a place where we're better prepared in the future to know how to handle that kind of a situation. It was a very surprising situation for most of us, and we can't be surprised anymore.
And you say there's no time limit on how long this process will take, or did you say a week, or do you know?
You mean the task force?
Yeah.
Yeah, the task force will take a few months. You know, it's part-time work of faculty administrators. So, again, at a university, I can't take everybody off what they normally do and say, this is it, do this for a month and get it done. So, yeah, that'll take time. But I think It's an important one to go through because I believe that whatever they come up with will be something that will be useful not just for me, but for the future of the university as well, both on the faculty, the student, and also the administrative piece of this. Yes.
So I'm getting this right. I mean, it seems like there are a bunch of steps towards tenure. At what part is she at?
I think right now she's at the university committee.
So is that-
Dr. Stokes, do you want to?
She's at the university.
Her dossier is at the university committee.
And that's the administration side?
Yeah. No, that's on the faculty side.
So she still needs to go to the administration side of the dean.
She's been to the dean. She needs to go to the provost next, and then to the chancellor. Now, at some schools, it's the board of curators that ultimately awards tenure, but my understanding is that that authority is delegated to me as chancellor by the board of curators here.
When did you say the tenure process would be?
I'm going to turn to you, Dr. Stokes.
The deadline by which everyone going up for promotion and tenure has to be notified is August 1st.
Okay.
That's about a year from when it started,
That's
right? And in some cases, it goes a little faster. But I honestly don't know how much faster this one will go.
With this being such a long ongoing process,
Yeah.
How does that affect some of the threats that have come out of the legislature as far as reduced funding?
Well, that's part of why I'm doing this today, because I think there's a misunderstanding of how things work here and how we have to work them and tradition. And the role of a chancellor is not the same as the role of a CEO of a for-profit corporation. So really, my job, day in and day out, is to help the organization get to the right decision. When chancellors start to make decisions capriciously or apparently capriciously without the consent, if you will, of the faculty, especially the faculty, then what you find is that you very quickly decay into turmoil. Trust has been lost already. We can't lose more trust. We have to build trust. We have to rebuild trust in leadership. I think all of you saw what happened when things happened precipitously last summer and fall. Dr. Stokes and I are committed to not letting that happen again. Are there any questions from the phone?
Yeah, this is Lorraine Williams with the Kansas City Star.
Hi.
I'm curious, the information that this task force learns through its investigation, what, if any, role will it play in the tenure process? Will it be considered as in part of the tenure process, and how much weight does a factor of this conduct carry in that process, along with service and research and
Sure.
some of the other factors?
So that process that I described, that ad hoc special task force, will not have input into the tenure process, and I anticipate it'll take too long for it to have input into the tenure process. Nonetheless, or rather than saying nonetheless, so that's the first answer to the first question. The second question really goes to how much does a person's behavior affect the likelihood of them receiving tenure. And there I would have to point back to the CRRs and a little bit to history. So first, the CRRs are set up in such a way that, in fact, we do have expectations of faculty behavior, and those have to be considered. In 99 out of 100 cases, there really isn't an issue, so 99 out of 100 times or more, don't hold me to that number exactly. But in most cases, you know, the decision is made on the basis of scholarship, teaching, and service. There isn't an extra added layer of this kind. Now, that said, we have to look at the nature of what's happened. So, for example, if someone were deeply involved in some kind of an organization advocating for certain kinds of rights and engaged in a peaceful protest, and as a result they were perhaps arrested, as might have happened in the 1960s or even in the 1970s, we'd have to look at that pretty carefully. We don't necessarily not tenure someone for doing something like that. Assault is a little different. We've got to look at this carefully. We've not, I don't think, had too many cases like this one before. The reason I say we're careful about that is that the history of the university is such that when we're not careful and in the deep, dark past, you know, curators, not here, but curators and trustees around the country really were somewhat arbitrary. And if they didn't like a professor or professor's work, they could turn on them and actually have them removed from their job. And there are notorious cases of this, which ultimately led to the institution of tenure in this country, which probably came up in the 1920s. So we have to always be able to look at a person and determine, is this a behavior that is somehow, you know, off kilter with what we expect from a decent faculty member, or is this a behavior that is consistent with their scholarship and maybe action research and the like that they're doing? So I hope that's clear. It's very clear to me. I'm not sure my answer was clear enough to all of you.
That was MU Interim Chancellor Hank Foley speaking on the status of Melissa Click's employment. For now, Melissa Click will be keeping her job as an assistant professor at MU. You'll remember that Click was caught on video asking for muscle to remove a journalist from those protests that happened at Mizzou on November 9th. Today, she has been charged with third-degree assault. Chancellor Foley also spoke about a new task force the university is going to be putting in place to discuss what happened on November 9th. He also says that he thinks Click is not a danger to campus right now and that she'll be working from home this week. But right now, the university says it will wait and see how the legal process plays out to discuss Click's tenure status. Of course, we will be following this story throughout the evening tonight, and we'll have live updates for you on ABC 17 News at 5 and 6 tonight.
Region